Okay, Rob and Paul, can you tell us where the origin of Crash Test came from?
Well, I think, Rob and I were very inspired by mass transit. We grew up seeing buses and thinking to ourselves, oh my God, what if we could do a comedy show on this bus? It's been a lifelong dream of the two of us to do a comedy variety show on a moving vehicle.
There's so few options for people that love vehicle-based comedy. And when we saw that there was a real need for comedy on a vehicle, we jumped at this.
For years, the Emmys have failed to acknowledge vehicle-based comedy. Do you know, and I run the numbers, people, there is 0 shows besides ours that are on a vehicle. The O.J. Simpson miniseries, not on a vehicle. Mr. Selfridge, not on a vehicle. These are all in one location. And we challenge the Academy to be more diverse and include all types of comedy and all types of vehicles.
I mean, we did our show on a moving bus in Los Angeles, but other people, you could do it on a boat, you could do it on a jet ski, you could do it on a hot air balloon. These are all vehicles.
Think about how good a show like Unreal would be if they were on jet skis the entire time.
Look, I love House of Cards. House of Cards. If it was,
Orange is the New Black on the back of like a whale. It's also a moving vehicle. I just want to get people moving.
Yeah. So, obviously... So obviously, as you've said, movement is a big part of your of Crash Test. What was the most exciting piece of movement from the episode, from the film?
I think the thing that we really liked about doing a show like this is, a stand-up special and a variety show. They've been done so many times, and I think it's really hard to make a new type of variety show. I think a lot of the times when you see a variety show, it harkens back to like the 60s and there's singing and dancing. But I was like, how can we do this in a little bit of a cooler way and in a looser way as well? And Rob and I host this show at the Upright Citizens Brigade Theater in Los Angeles. And our show is kind of always a little bit unexpected. We have a couple of ideas of what we want to talk about, but then we let the crowd and the night kind of affect it. Like last night, there was a heat wave in LA, and we shut off all the lights and we did the show completely in the dark. And so we didn't plan on that. It just kind of happened. And that's kind of the idea with the bus. Like, we're out in the street. There are things that are affecting us nonstop that we have no control over. And so we have to react to that. And it kind of plays on us as improvisers as well.
Sort of came about, we do this show live in LA called Crash Test. And we had always joked around with the bus, and it's so fun. And then we started thinking about how it would be really easy just to call all of our comedy friends and say, okay, we're coming by with the audience, we're going to bring them to you, just be in your front yard at 8:30. So that's what we did, is we just called all of our friends and said, be on this street corner at 8:45. We'll be there with an audience.
No rehearsals, no second takes. We just started the bus and we crossed our fingers to make sure that everything worked out. Now, I would say 80% of the things worked out great, and then there were a lot of things that we didn't have enough coverage for that we really liked, or a moment that we couldn't really put in the show. But we shot for about 6 to 7 hours, and we cut that all down to about an hour of the best stuff.
Yeah. And did you know what you were going to get from each of the comedians as you went to their house, or did they completely plan their own bits?
Half and half. We sort of told people what we wanted from them in a few different bits. Like, we had set up a few different things and said, the structure of this sketch will be kind of like this, and then this will happen, and then this will happen. So a few of the things were like that, but then like the stand-ups in their own material that they wrote. And then a lot of the people that we do comedy with are improvisers, so a lot of it is improvised too.
One of the great examples of that is we just pulled up in front of Man's Chinese Theater, which is a place really for weirdos. I mean, there's costume characters out there. It's the tourist mecca of LA, which is not saying much because it's just really like a block. And we pulled up there and we're like, all right, let's just see what happens. And that was a chance for us to kind of mix this kind of written stuff and then something totally unwritten, so we go back and forth throughout the special.
Yeah, there's a part there at Mann's Chinese Theater where we just took a guy from the audience and we gave him an earpiece and we sent him out onto the sidewalk there with all the crazy people. It's sort of like Times Square, but in Hollywood. And so we sent him out there and we just started telling him what to say to people. And, he's just a guy, but he was just really funny and like was game to talk to anybody and just being really weird with and whatever we wanted him to say. And so it was like having a human puppet that we could control. And so
we basically had like 4 bits planned for that area, but he was so funny and the bit went on for so long. And we're like, we got it. We don't need to do anything else. Like, because we just kind of found a really fun moment with him.
Did anything go wrong in the 6-7 hour sort of shoot?
We didn't have a bathroom on the bus. That was a grave miscalculation on our part to have about 60 people on a bus with no bathroom.
We didn't really know because we only had the bus for one night, so we didn't know how long it was going to take. And we didn't really tell anyone that they were going to be on the bus for like 8 hours. We kind of just said, hey, we're going to go do this thing. It's going to be really fun. You're going to see all these great comedians. But we didn't tell them that they were going to be on the bus for that long. So people were hungry and tired. And by the end of it, they had to go to the bathroom pretty bad.
I think that if we were to give ourselves like one note of something to improve is we had all these GoPro cameras set around the bus to capture the audience. But in the craziness of the night, because we're shooting and we're just stopping to reload cameras, no one ever changed the angles. So if you do look closely throughout the show, every time you cut to an audience member, it's one of 2 shots, and it's always of the same 2 people. So like, that was the piece of production that we didn't quite figure out. Like, oh, yeah, we should change the angle of this camera every time we reload it because we're just getting the same girl laughing every single time.
It was pretty hard to parallel park the bus. The bus is like the biggest thing you've ever seen. And it's just this giant glass, looks like a big aquarium with you can see straight through it. And all the people are facing the sidewalk. They're all in like movie theaters type seats, looking out on the sidewalk. But it's just the biggest thing and it's impossible to park. So we would, pull up somewhere and it would take us like 10 minutes to like back the bus in there, and people are.
Well, one of the cool things that we got access to was the Paramount back lot. And they never let you shoot on the Paramount back lot unless you have a lot of money or you're in a stage. They never really let you shoot driving around. So we got to break into Paramount with this bus, but Paramount's so narrow that we were just like creating havoc wherever we went on this back lot. That was the most, I think, the least thought out move because we never really, we were like, oh yeah, we have to really work the streets. We don't have to work the Paramount back lot because that's protected. But just moving back and forth in between sound stages became like K turn after K turn after K turn.
It seemed like the whole project being this sort of 8-hour shoot. We had the bus one night, very much like James Cameron's Titanic, where you really only had like one take to get it right.
Yeah, a lot of people compare our comedy special to Titanic. Thank you for bringing that up. You're not the first.
No, but I think that there's a certain element of danger. Rob and I aren't stand-up comics. We do improv and we do sketch. And so I think that was playing into our strengths. It's like, we don't have a set that we've perfected for the last year and we're recording it, in this pristine way. We wanted to make it feel a little bit more and my pet peeve is always, again, going back to variety shows, like the idea of a variety show, like what is the new type of variety show and how can you make it feel like it's a little more dangerous or a little bit more interesting than a very staid execution of something we've already seen. So for us, I think that kept us on our toes and it allowed us to kind of find a lot more stuff in the moment. And then always, if you shoot 6 hours more than you need, that's always a recipe for success. Like we didn't go out with the bus for an hour and a half and be like, we got it. Like we could cut a lot of footage.
Yeah, I think we got away with a lot because I think if you create an event that people can be a part of, people will go along for the ride, so to speak. So I think that we just sort of set up this big event that was only going to happen one time, and then it was never going to happen again. And I think that everyone that was a part of that felt so excited about it. And I think that energy is sort of translated when you watch it. It sort of feels like you're a part of this one crazy night.
Yeah, it really was fun to, the one comment that we got from a lot of people after they saw the special was, oh, I wish I was on that bus. And when are you doing it again? And so I think that was really like our hope, as at least in the way we were shooting it, to make it feel like it was a very personal show. It's not a show for 500 people. It's, a show that like you feel a part of.
When are you doing it again?
We're talking about trying to figure out another time to do it with Comedy Central, but not with we've talked about not doing it with a bus. We want to try to make it different, and who knows? We have ideas for it, but Rob and I have both been shooting, so we have not like sat down with them to kind of figure out the next location. But we want to do it in different locations, or maybe on a duck boat. Who knows?
Yeah, we thought about maybe if we do it again, doing it in different cities. Like maybe go to like Austin, Texas, or go to San Francisco,
or even like San Diego during Comic-Con or something. Like I think one of the cool things about the bus is that the street becomes the stage. So if we can go to cooler places where there's a lot going on the street, and LA is rare like that because it essentially is empty at night. Like if we go to New York or something, you would really get a whole different level of show.
Yeah. And I guess it's like countless other forms of transport you guys could use, from, like, as you said, the duck boat to something like a blimp or a helicopter or something like that.
By the way, if we did the next one in a Goodyear blimp above like the World Series, it would be amazing.
What could go wrong? I mean, nothing's ever gone wrong in a blimp.
No. This one got comparisons to the Titanic, and there's no infamous blimps.
There's never been a giant blimp accident.
Yeah, no, a bunch of electrical equipment on a blimp, not a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of my favorite what was it? Human Giant sketches was the hot air balloon police.
Yeah, that was a sketch. The premise of it, for people who don't know, was Aziz and Rob were like traffic cops, like kind of like like they people are giving you like highway cops, but they got around through a hot air balloon. So they would do high speed chases in a hot air balloon. And they could never catch up to the car because hot air balloons you can't control it. It just goes where it goes. I was the hot air balloon conductor, but that was a sketch that we could never get on TV until our second season, because in our first season, they'd be like, well, it makes no sense. Why would you ever use a hot air balloon to chase down criminals?
Oh, yeah. We literally had to explain it to MTV. They were like, but why would cops use a hot air balloon for a high speed chase? And
we were that's the sketch.
Oh, that's great.
But that's what you get when the producer of like Reverend Run's house is giving you sketch comedy notes.
Yes. Well, and we're putting this show together. We're putting Crash Test together. I guess you guys have experience in sketch comedy before with Human Giant and maybe some other things, but also with your work at the UCB, you got experience with sort of more long form improv. And this sort of project in some ways is a merging of the two things, where you got your sort of sketch, more short form, like little bits, but it's part of a larger sort of story that continues over a couple of hours or 8 hours on the night.
Yeah. Well, I think that was what we wanted to try to capture, is like, we are kind of, our hands are tied. Like Rob and I get to do this show, and we've been doing this show, Crash Test, at UCB Theater since 2005. And it's so much fun for us to do, but you can't translate it into anything else. It kind of only exists as a stage show. And that's why, that our background just is that. When you try to translate improv to TV, I feel like it's wonky. I think Whose Line obviously has done it well, but that's a very short form based thing. Like there's not really an outlet for what we kind of do, like sketch prov, kind of event show. So that was really about challenging ourselves to figure out how we could do our version of a stand-up special.
And I mean, I think at the end of the day, we also wanted to throw in like some music. There's a pretty cool performance by Earl Sweatshirt at the end And a lot of people that have seen that are like, oh, wow, that's crazy. Like, I've never seen a performance like that on the street with this guy rapping with his whole crew of people.
Yeah.
It feels like really electric and really exciting. And
one of my favorite parts of the show was basically we shot a live music video.
Yeah.
And, you know, and we didn't even know what we were getting. We didn't know what it was going to be. And it was, you know, and we were very lucky to have Lance Bangs, who, you know, is a famous director who's, you know, was like directing like or directed or shot Nirvana, you know, when they were performing, and, you know, has done a lot of things for Vice. So he has a really down and dirty sense. So, you know, just kind of getting out on the street with those guys and being able to edit it together, it looked awesome.
I like, one of my favorite things to do in LA is go to the UCB and see a show whenever I'm there. And I think like we're seeing more and more sort of this sort of long form improv become something that people understand a bit more about. Because I think like it used to, as you said, sort of be very much in the past, very much Whose Line a lot of people knew about, which is great, but it was more the short form improv. And like, what role do you, what do you think you can do in long form improv that you can't do in other forms of comedy?
Well, I think that like, I think that improv sort of helps you, for us anyway. I think it's kind of helped just with writing, you know, like specifically with this show, you know, when we would shoot a bit for this show, we would just let it go long, you know, like when we're doing a thing with Rob Corddry, you know, he took us through all the bit with Corddry. You know, he's having a yard sale at night in his front yard, and it's just a bunch of just jokes, you know, it's just all just crap that he's selling. And so, you know, we shot that for 30 minutes and he's improvising over and over and over, but, you know, just all these dumb jokes about that sort of stuff. And then when we come back and look at the footage, we just edit it down and pick the best, funniest joke. So I think that improv is sort of helping us sort of write more and more jokes all the time. It's just creating more and more jokes, you know?
Well, yeah, I always feel like there's two things that play too. I think the popularity of long form is kind of becoming more accepted because of podcasts. I think that, you know, podcasts now are these longer form things. They're less produced. They're a little bit more raw. They're these long interviews, or a show like Comedy Bang Bang, or, you know, a show like Hollywood Handbook, where it's like you're just along for the ride. You know, one of my favorite shows is like The Best Show with Tom Sharpling, and it's just sort of like you don't know where it's going to go, but you have these like 3 hours. So I think people feel like you get people more interested in like not delayed gratification, but just like kind of they're not waiting for it to be like, what's a joke? What's a joke? It's not like laughing or something anymore. So I think that like, I think podcasts have let people really kind of sink into a bit. And to what Rob is saying, yeah, I think you should always shoot in a comedy. You should always come with a script that's super strong, but then be open to the inspiration of the day, because 9 times out of 10, you're going to find something on set that's going to make it feel better. It could make the writing better, or it could just make the entire scene better, something you could never have thought of when you were writing. And I think it really, you know, if you're not having some semblance of improv in your comedy that you're doing on TV or on film, I think you're really missing out, because I think there's so much life there to be mined.
I also think that like now, at least I feel like in Hollywood a little bit, that's sort of why we get hired. Like I always feel like whenever I'm cast in a movie or something or a TV show, I always feel like, oh, that's because I improvise and they want me to do that. Like I always just assume that because it's like a bonus, you know, for the writers. You know, like if you're doing a guest spot on some sitcom or something like that, you do what they wrote, you know, and then in the next take you just do whatever you want, you know. So I always sort of assume that's why I get hired on stuff.
Yeah, I think also too, like the one thing I like about long form and at least doing it at UCB is it's a singular experience. You can leave that night and be like, that show is awesome. And you try to explain it to your friend, and it's never as funny because it's the sum total of its parts. It's not just the one, you know, it's like you can leave a stand-up show and be like, oh, they had a funny bit about blank, and you can tell that bit and then there's a clear punchline. But a long-form show is really like, once it's over, it's done. You know, Rob and I do a long-form improv show every Wednesday night at UCB, and I can't tell you what any of those shows have been in the last 10 years. I don't remember, like the minute that we finish them, they're gone. They just disappear. And I think that there's something really cool about that too. Like it's like a magic trick that you can never recreate. It just happened. And the benefit is if it sucks, it also goes away too.
It's almost also a shared experience between that audience and those performers, that like a unique thing that no one ever, only the people in the room get to experience that, I guess, unless it's filmed. So
and that's what we were trying to do with the bus, by kind of keeping it smaller and traveling with this. It's like, I mean, even though even everybody can watch it, but it's like, how do we capture that we're together in this? Like, this is something that is a unique thing. Like a stand-up special, no matter how great the stand-up special is, if you see someone, you know, playing to a room of 500 people, so many other people have had that exact same experience. It's not been in that same room, but it's the exact same experience because that's the material, that's the jokes. And this is something that it's that we can't recreate that. We can do things that feel similar to it, but you could never recreate what we did that night.
Did you guys have a game, like, it was, you know, to the sketch or to the crash test?
Yeah. Like each piece, like we had like a little like we had here, your bit is this and then that, like that, you know, like a game for each play.
Yeah, like something you were working towards. Like
yeah. I mean, I think you'll, if you watch it again, when you go back, you can sort of see how like every single comedy bit has a pretty clear game, and every character is it's pretty clear what it is that what their deal is, you know.
But then it can veer off as well. I think, you know, one of the things that we came to Rob Corddry with was like, oh, why don't you do it with your Boston accent? You know, and this is like, he's from Boston. He doesn't have a Boston accent, but we know that that's like a fun, you know, he's a fun way for him to kind of do stuff. So he did that, and he said to us like, well, you know what, maybe I have this, like we collaborated a little bit too. It's like, oh, how about this? And how about that? And we just kind of built the piece together and what they wanted to do. And then that was, you know, over text messages and emails. And then we just went and did it. For example, like Aziz, we didn't even know we were going to get him until like maybe an hour before the show started. He's like, oh yeah, my stand-up set just finished. I was like, all right, great. Well, then just drive over to this taco place. We'll stop by. And he did. And when he gets in his car and leaves, he went home. He went to that taco place and went home. That was
classic.
Yeah.
Classic Aziz at a taco place. What moment of comedy that was found on that night are each of you most fond of?
Oh man, that's a good question.
Wow, that is a good question. Yeah, I think that probably some of my favorite stuff is when we took that guy from the bus, just the audience member, and put him out on the street and just told him, you know, we would tell him what to do and what to say. And I just got a kick out of that because it was completely unscripted. We didn't know this guy, and we had no idea what we were going to come up with. But you know, the bus was rigged so that there's speakers inside the bus, so we can hear what's happening out on the street. And so the whole audience, it was just like eavesdropping on a little conversation, you know. So that to me was really fun because it was like this sort of stealthy, kind of a little prank thing going on, and it was just so spur of the moment that it just really made me laugh.
Well, I'll jump on that and say that I also like the idea that we were these bullies for a night. Like we had a bus that had a giant megaphone that looked like this glass dildo running down the street, and we were able to like just harass people for better or for worse. And you've never seen this bus before. It's not a normal thing. So all of a sudden you're seeing this like 70-foot bus barrel down the street with lights and like our faces all over it. And then all of a sudden we're screaming at you. Like, so if you're at the ATM, you're getting yelled at. If you're at a valet stand, you're getting yelled at. And we're interacting with people in those moments. And I feel like we just felt as a group like, oh, let's go. Like it was slightly like a mob mentality, but our mob had our own bus. And so I like that like sense of camaraderie that we were basically just being, it was like being on Halloween and just being like bad kids. Like, let's fuck around, you know, let's just kind of see what's going on here tonight. And that energy, I don't know. I just love interacting with the audience. I love the audience being part of it because then it feels like you're not doing a show for them. You're doing a show with them.
Yeah. Well, guys, it's been so great chatting about Crash Test. All the best of luck for the Emmy Awards that are coming up. All the best of luck for your. What are you working on? Anything else, guys, at the moment? What are all those like notes behind you?
Well, Rob and I actually no. That's Breaking Bad, the final season. We're actually handwriting the next season. Fanfic. Rob and I actually just sold another vehicle-based comedy show called Drive Share, where it's going to be like Taxi Cab Confessions, but in drive share kind of Lyfts and Ubers. And so we're doing a 10-episode series of that right now.
Yeah, it's just a bunch of hilarious Uber rides, and so we have to write about 600 million
bits,
funny Uber bits,
But basically, attack the same way. We're reaching out to our really funny friends and crafting a bit with them, and then we're going to improvise in the car and then cut down an hour to 4 minutes. So it's kind of using some of the same techniques, some stuff that you would see on Comedy Bang Bang or Reno 911, like just kind of continuing to use that. And you're
when are we gonna?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, no, go.
Rob is in Transparent, which is also hotly in the Emmy race.
That's right. Yep. Transparent 3 comes back in September. And Paul is what?
I just finished doing Party Over Here, which is a sketch show, also in the mix for Emmys. But also I'm in the movie Popstar, the Lonely Island movie, which is super funny. And if you haven't seen it, you should see it.
And you have your ghost hunting shows where
yes, my ghost hunting show.
Paul has a ghost hunting show where he goes and he makes love to ghosts,
essentially and erotically. I want to bring to your listeners out there, Gold Derby. As I was voting for Emmys the other day, I saw a show that I feel we all need to watch and talk about. It's called Hellevator, and I don't know what this show is, but it seems like it's a real show where people get in an elevator and they get out and they're attacked by supernatural forces. I'm not making this up.
Is it a reality show?
It's a reality show.
It's a reality show.
Yeah, it's on the Emmy ballot, Hellevator. So there you go. Guys, let's get that a nomination.
Did you vote for Hellevator?
Oh, hell yeah. Sight unseen.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's good. So thanks guys. We're excited. But when are we going to see the Uber show?
Later this year, I think November, December.
Yeah.
Okay. So we can talk about that next year for the Emmys.
That's right.
Let's do it. Only short form.
Very good.
You.
Very good. Thanks guys so much for chatting. So much fun, and all the best with the Emmys and everything. And hopefully I'll get to see you on Wednesday night next time in LA.
Let us know when you come. We'll get you in.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, thanks.
Thanks.